It was Christmas Eve, and I was a freshman in high school. My family has been split up for some time, so normally we trade off of Christmas Day and Christmas Eve every year, and this year I had come home early for my grandparents' Christmas party, while everyone else was at my aunt and uncle's celebrating at another party. When I was dropped off, my cousins offered to stay with me for a few hours, yet I declined. I thought I could watch some of my new DVDs and get some alone time in the house, which is a rarity. I had noticed an unfamiliar car parked on the street, but didn't think anything of it considering it was Christmas Eve. Probably a neighbor's relative or something, I thought. After I got inside, I locked the door, grabbed snacks, and started to settle down. I hadn't been home for more than 15 minutes when there was a knock at the door. I unlocked the door and opened it only just a crack to see a man standing there. Dark hair, glasses, slightly overweight, and dressed casually. He didn't look like much of a threat, but my stomach dropped. He asked me, "I was wondering about the car outside. Is it for sale?" I told him, "I don't think so." "Is there someone here I can talk to about it?" the man asked. "No, you can come back another time," I said, and shut the door and turned the lock as fast as I possibly could. He reached for the handle immediately and started pounding on the door. I heard a string of profanities and the pounding stopped. Terrified, I was crawling on the floor to the phone, hoping he wouldn't be able to see me through one of the windows. Then, I heard a few noises, and I suddenly remembered that our house had an open garage door and it led through to the laundry room, where the door lock was broken and no one had bothered to fix it. Just then, I heard a man yell, and I saw the man through the window run to his car and drive off. Turns out, my uncle had gotten home just in time and scared the man off. Who knows what would have happened if he hadn't made it home in time. Sadly, we didn't get the plate number, and nothing ever came of it, but I'll never be home alone on a holiday again. This happened back in 2016, near Christmas, when I was a 17-year-old first-year college student in film school. I'm 22 now. My name is Julia. I lived alone in my first ever apartment. It was really small, but I liked being independent. I never felt unsafe in this apartment for several reasons. There were multiple gates in the residence that needed to be opened through a code only the people who lived there knew. My door had 3 different locks, and it was right next to the university, so most people who lived in the neighborhood were college students. Nothing bad had ever happened in my neighborhood. I've always been a very careful person with locking the door when I leave my home. I always check twice, because I have slight OCD. So this one time, I leave to go to class and lock my door, but for some reason, I couldn't get the key out of the lock. I was completely stuck, so I went to go get the caretaker of the building to help me, but he wasn't there, and I was getting late for class. So I went to class with the key still in the lock, but before I left, I took off the keychain so it wasn't so noticeable. When I got home, the caretaker was back, so he came to help me, and we couldn't get it out for like 15 minutes, but he somehow did get it out. He told me the lock was damaged, but that I didn't really necessarily need to change it if I only locked it once instead of twice. I just said okay, and that was the end of it. I really wasn't worried because of how safe I felt in this building. Fast forward 2 months later, I was taking out the trash one night around 11 p.m. while on the phone with my sister. I remember telling her that I was taking out the trash, then that I would take a shower afterwards before heading to a party. As I previously said, I always locked the door, even just to take out the trash. Because of my lock being damaged, I only locked it once. When I got back to my apartment, I found the door unlocked, which immediately alarmed me. So I went into the apartment and locked the door immediately, with 3 different types of locks. When you walk into my apartment, which is just 215 square feet, you have the main room in front of you and the bathroom door immediately to your left. I had left the bathroom door slightly open, but it was enough to see a man in my shower, turning his back to me. Naturally, when I saw this, I tried to open the door and leave as fast as possible, except my main lock was damaged from 2 months earlier, and I couldn't open it no matter how hard I tried. In this moment, all I could think of was the fact that I had to leave this place as fast as possible. I jumped out the window without really thinking. I figured it was my only solution. except I lived on the second floor, so I completely smashed my ankles in the landing. I started running in whichever way I could, and when I got a little bit further from the building, I looked back and a man was there, at my window, watching me run away. I thought of two possible outcomes. Either the man was going to jump and chase me, except I wouldn't get far with my twisted ankles, or he would just get scared because of the height and be locked in my apartment. Thankfully, he didn't go the first route. I went to hide in a bush a little further and then called the police, who arrived in just 10 minutes because I lived close to the station. They pushed my door open and the man was just sitting there on my couch, holding a kitchen knife, waiting for me to come back, like he didn't think I would call the police. They arrested the guy and later told me that he had already been arrested for sexual assault, rape, attempted kidnapping, and attempted murder. They also told me how everything had happened. Like I said, it was a very friendly neighborhood with mostly college students. So he got inside the building by asking other people to unlock the gates for him, as he told them that he was going to visit family. But he wasn't actually going to visit family. He was going to do, well, only God knows what to me. He then heard me telling my sister that I was going to take a shower, which was why he was waiting in the bathroom for me. He had picked my lock while I was taking out the trash. He apparently noticed me on school campus and followed me to my home several times before succeeding to actually come in. He stayed inside waiting for me because I had recently changed my phone and the previous one was still on the table, so he thought that I didn't have a phone with me to call the police. I don't live there anymore, but after that, to get into the building, we all needed identification proving we lived there. Building IDs were created and we had to scan them every time, and it was the only way to go inside the building. Nothing bad happened in the neighborhood after that. It's back to normal, and I hope it stays that way. It was Christmas Day. I was 16 and my cousin was 12. My cousin and I stayed at her house overnight, and her parents left early in the morning to go skiing. I was supposed to stay with her until her parents got home late that night. We had been there all alone all day. In the afternoon, one of my friends came over and drove us to the store to get junk food. We had locked all the doors when we left. We didn't have a house key to get back in, so my cousin had to go around to the back gate and climb through the dog door into the garage and then go in through the kitchen to let me in. A few hours went by and it was starting to get dark. We were sitting on the couch watching TV when suddenly I had a nervous, anxious feeling come over me. I didn't say anything about it. A few minutes passed by when down the hall I thought I saw a shadow move or a change in the light or something. But something happened. My cousin immediately turned and looked at me and she said, "Did you see that?" My heart was racing at that point. We slowly got up and walked straight across toward the kitchen telephone. Looking down the hallway as we got to the kitchen, I told her to call my mom. I opened the garage door to let their dog in, a huge German Shepherd. As she was on the phone with my mom, and the dog was by my side, I felt more confident and started to walk toward the hallway. There was only one other phone in the house, which was at the end of the hallway in her mom's room. While she was on the phone with my mom heard another phone pick up, so she asked my cousin, "Did Emily pick up the other line?" My cousin then whispered really loudly to me, "Did you just pick up the other phone?" And almost at that exact same moment, the dog started to whimper and turned around and went back toward the kitchen. I was like, hell no. My mom told her, "Get out of the house." We both were running to the front door, looking back as I was fumbling to get the door unlocked. Just like in a scary movie, I couldn't get it open. We were full panicking and screaming at this point. Finally, I was able to open the door. We got out and we were running down the road, which was a rural area without any close neighbors. As we ran, I looked back to see if somebody was chasing us, and there was no one behind me at all, not even my cousin. It was the worst feeling ever. I suddenly could hear her crying. I had to go back, but I didn't want to. Completely out of breath, I ran back to the house, making weird sobbing noises because I was really scared. I found that my cousin had fallen over onto the porch and twisted her ankle. The dog was next to her. So I got her up, and she, the dog, and I walked partway down the road, still scared to death and crying. We saw my older brother's truck go speeding by and screech to a stop at our house. He said my dad was on his way, so we would get in the truck with my brother and his girlfriend to wait for my dad. Suddenly, as we were looking towards the house, we saw a shadow walk through the living room. Everyone in the truck saw it, there was no doubt. The curtains were closed, but the lights were still on and somebody walked through it. Just then my dad pulled up. He and my brother went into the house with a gun. They went through the entire house, but nobody was in there. And funny thing is, all the doors were locked, except for the front door of course because we ran through it. But we were sitting in a position that we would have been able to see anybody coming out of the house. It made no sense at all. I know I wasn't crazy because my brother and his girlfriend saw the shadow as well, but nobody was in the house. Another strange thing was that the phone that my cousin had dropped on the floor when we ran was hung back up. After that night, my cousin's mom stopped staying alone in the house. If my uncle wasn't home for some reason, they would leave also. I don't know what other things happened there, but apparently that wasn't the only thing to cause her to take such a drastic action. We haven't actually ever spoke about what happened that night.